I am Dr. Dhanasri, professor in St. Peter's Engineering College, taking classes for first year BTech students. Earlier class, we have discussed about Unit 5, Environment Policy, Legislation and EIA, various acts and rules. And today we are going to discuss about EIA. It is nothing but Environmental Impact Assessment. What is the necessity of EIA? Today, first we will have an introduction. We all are developing technologically and various fields. That human development is mainly aimed to raise the quality of our life and to have comforts in our life and have a better basic amenities and to provide the opportunities for employment. This growth and development led to several environmental problems such as various pollutions. It can be air pollution, water pollution, or soil pollution. And with this depletion of natural resources, we can identify, example, mineral resources are getting depleted, fossil fuels are getting depleted, all these things. And by burning these fossil fuels, carbon dioxide is released out and greenhouse effect we can see in these years. These are global problems. And also when we are using more and more chlorides or bromides, chlorofluorocarbons, and they also resulted in ozone layer depletion. In 1960s itself, they have realized that before any developmental activity or any project is started, impact prediction, what will be the impact of that project? We have to predict and we have to assess it. And this should be done to minimize the negative impacts due to that projects. This concept, that means as prediction and assessment concept, was formulated as a methodological procedure known as environmental impact assessment. Environmental assessment is a assessment of the environmental consequences. Either they can be positive or negative consequences due to a plan or any policy or any program when it come into action or any actual project, and prior to the decision to move forward with the proposed action. Environmental impact assessments commenced in the 1960s as part of increasing environmental awareness. The National Environment Policy Act of US in 1969 provided the guidelines for environmental impact assessment through Council for Environmental Policy. In India, EIA was started in 1976 and 77 when Planning Commission asked the DST, Department of Science and Technology, about the river valley projects and their impact on environment. This was initiated. The Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change of India has been in a great effort in EIA, issued Gazette notification on EIA in the year 1994. What is the purpose of EIA? EIA is a process with several important purposes: to facilitate decision making, and to aid in the formation of the development, to be an instrument for sustainable development, and it helps in healthy development and also helpful for future need for ecological development by protecting the environment. The benefits of environmental assessment. With EIA, we can reduce the cost and time of the project implementation, and cost saving modifications in the project design we can change, increased project acceptance, avoided impacts and violation of laws and regulations, improved project performance, avoided treatment cleanup costs. Then what is the impact? What is meant by an impact? The change, impact is nothing but any change caused by any developmental project on ecology, on air or water or socio-economic aspects of human life is defined as impact. Impacts can be categorized as direct impact, indirect impact, and cumulative impact. Direct impacts occur through direct interaction of an activity with an environmental, social, or economic component. Example, when any new project is going to start in an area, with that we first clear the land by removing the natural vegetation. There is a direct impact. Indirect impacts may occur due to delay in time for the proposed project. Indirect impacts are difficult to measure also. With the development or with the highways, you can see the urban growth in that newly formed area. You can see with that urban growth, in turn we can see various effects on environment. Third one, cumulative impact occurs where individual projects when combined with other projects may cause an overall adverse cumulative effect. Individual of different individual projects can have a other type of effect impact on the environment, that itself is called cumulative effect. According to the nature, impacts can be grouped as positive and negative impacts. For example, if any river valley project is there or a dam construction in an area, harvesting hydroelectricity and providing jobs for the people, all these comes under positive impacts. A negative impact, if it is constructed in forest area, losing the plants, deforestation, and having effect on habitat of animals, all these comes under negative impact. And also waterlogging of low-lying area fields also comes under negative impact. So one project can have a positive impact, can have a negative impact. It can be on human or on environment. Reversible and irreversible impact. This can be taken by taking example of one chemical industry. Example, a large chemical industry was constructed near to a river. If they are releasing any effluent waters, that effluent waters, when they are merging with the water body, by treatment of that water body, you can remove that toxic chemicals added to it and convert it into a normal water. That is a reversible change. And while construction of that chemical factory, by chance if we lose any endemic species of that area, if you lost that animal or a plant, and it becomes extinct because it is an endemic species seen only in that particular area, not elsewhere in this world. So that becomes an irreversible change. We cannot get back that animal in a living condition. Light, moderate, and severe impacts. With some small industries where the toxic chemicals are not used, normal chemicals are used, if they are added properly after proper treatment with in effluent treatments, then the mild chemical concentrations added to the water bodies or to the air, any air pollutants are called light impact. Moderate impact in the same way. And severe impact mostly we can see with a nuclear power plant or such very toxic uh, chemicals where the impact will be more severe. What is the structure of EIA? The structure of an EIA varies according to the project and location and the authorship. EIA, which deals only with project impacts, includes a current environmental conditions and accounts of project impact as well as available alternatives to the proposed project. EIA differs in both structure and their emphasis. This is the methodology of EIA. First, the project proposal will be screened, then scoping is done, baseline data collection, that means collecting all the relevant information in that area where the project is going to start, then predicting the impact. Then impact assessment is done, Then what are the mitigation measures they are going to follow to reduce the negative impacts and to enhance the positive impacts. And environment impact statement. Total is a formal document giving the information, total information of that proposed project, including everything, mitigation measures, everything. And EIS review will be done. Then finally, final EIS will be submitted after review. Then EIA follow up once it is approved. Then it will be followed by auditing. In detail, what it is, we will see now. The first step, the basic steps followed in EIA methodology. First step, preliminary activities or screening. Screening is done to see whether the project needs an EIA for clearance or not. Sometimes the projects can be, if they are aiming to construct in any area where the historical monuments are there, then they will first itself, they will reject that one. That means screening is done where the project actually is planned to start or locate. Second step, scoping. Scoping involves determination of the extent of EIA required for the project. Depending upon the project, basically two types of EIA may be carried out. One is comprehensive, second rapid. Comprehensive requires the year-long data, in detail baseline data of that area where the project is going to start. Second one, rapid. Rapid means one season data is enough for the rapid EIA. Third one, baseline study. This baseline study gives a holistic picture of the overall environmental setting of the project, location, showing any significant environmental items prior to initiation of the action to the decision makers and reviewers. Environmental parameters like regional demography and topography of that area, geology of that area, and water related hydrology of that area, and climate factors, temperature, humidity, all these rainfall, meteorological factors of that area, and ecology, what type of plant, cropland or forest area or not, all these things, animal population, all this ecology of that area are considered while preparing this baseline data. The next step will be impact identification. It includes the details of project characters, identification whether it is a positive impact or negative impact. The impact will be direct. What are the indirect impacts with this project? Impacts, are they significant? Then what are the insignificant impacts with this project? All these are identified. Next, impact prediction. Prediction is done using two methods, mathematical model or mass balance models, and to predict the magnitude of changes going to occur with this project. Then next one, environmental impact evaluation. It is evaluated in terms of the cost or benefits in terms of money. Impact evaluation is done by considering the cost and benefits of the project. Long-term effects and side effects of the project are also evaluated. Loss of rare species. It is a long-term effect, or sometimes it becomes an irreversible impact. Degradation of water bodies, etc. Degradation of water bodies we can change. Also long-term effect, but we can change the water body. It's a reversible change. Mitigation measures, seventh one. What mitigation measures are to be suggested to reduce or to avoid the adverse changes due to that project? What are the control measures we can have to reduce the negative impacts caused by this project are given under mitigation measures. Environmental impact statement, next, eighth one, is subjected by the project proponents at the time of submission itself. EIS includes the objectives of the project, its impact on the environment, that means from the starting construction phase, then implementation phase, what will be the impacts on the environment, and its mitigation measures to minimize the impacts. What are the control measures that we can have to minimize the negative impacts, and alternative to the proposed action plan. what alternatives we can show to reduce the negative impacts. First, they will submit the draft EIS. It is reviewed and evaluated by the Impact Assessment Agency. Then they will make some changes, necessary changes if they prescribe. The final EIS is prepared. Next step, decision making. During decision making, people staying in that area, the public who are staying in that area, their opinion is also taken before decision making. Public consultation. Public consultation either in the form of questionnaire or direct one-to-one interaction they will do. That means their opinion is recorded. Public consultation and participation aims to assure the quality, comprehensiveness and effectiveness of the EIA. The public's views are adequately taken into consideration in the decision-making process. Decisions are made by the relevant authority of the EIS, together with other material considerations as to whether to accept the project or to defer, or that means or to make changes something or reject the project. Either of these one decision will be taken. If it got approved, then monitoring of the project implementation and impacts. Post-decision monitoring. This involves the recording of outcome associated with development impacts. After the decision to proceed with the project, it can contribute to effective project management. Then, once the project is implemented, auditing is done. This follows monitoring and involves comparing actual outcomes with predicted outcomes. They have given here predictions, impact predictions based on some models before the starting. Once the project is getting implemented, then they will compare what is the actual outcome and what they have given in EIA, and can be used to assess the quality of the predictions and the effectiveness of mitigation. How far the mitigation measures are followed, what is the effect of these mitigation measures. It provides a vital step in the EIA learning process. It is the total methodology of EIA. Then what are the various methods of baseline data acquisition? Baseline data is collected by primary or secondary methods and also by RS and GIS. Primary data collection means primary data collection is done by visiting to the site and study of various parameters are done. Primary data is collected on important natural, cultural, historical heritage and also on socio-economic aspects using scientific methodology. In that area, what is the type of cultivation or what is the type of water resources, what culture they follow, whether it is a city or a rural area, are there any historical monuments in surrounding area, in how much distance, type of people, all these things we can collect by visiting to that place. That method is called primary data collection. Then secondary data collection. Baseline data on annual rainfall, humidity, temperature, evaporation, soil temperature, wind speed, what type of irrigation facilities they have, whether groundwater or any surface water body is there, and that is availability of water resources in that area if you are going to construct any industry, what type of crops they will have, cropping pattern, archaeological related things if any are there in that area, historical related things, cultural, heritage information, and population demography of that area surroundings can be collected by visiting to the particular department, concerned department. If it is related to any climate related things, rainfall, humidity, temperature, everything, we can go to meteorological department and collect the data. And related to type of cropping pattern, availability of irrigation resources, soil temperature, what type of soil, all these things we can get from agriculture department. And these historical, cultural, archaeological related data we can get from archaeological departments, and where the data will be available with them. And the type of collecting the data from the concerned departments is called secondary data collection. Use of remote sensing and GIS for baseline data acquisition. And for land use and land cover mapping, data on vegetation, land use and land cover, on water bodies, on types of soils, how far their deforestation was practiced, what is the percentage of urbanization in surrounding areas, on water resources, how the industrial growth is seen in that area. All these overall we can of 10 meter radius and also 50 meters 50 meters radius from the project where it was planned, we can get the total data by remote sensing and also geographical information system. This picture is from remote sensing, the satellite picture, where we can see the various things here. Where the barren land is there, you can see here. The red one, built up urban area mostly. What type of data we require, that will be given by the satellite pictures. And GIS. In one slide itself, we will get all different types of informations. In that area, vegetation data we will get, and buildings data we will get in that area itself, and street data. All this information in one slide we will get, and these GIS and RS are utilized by us for collecting the baseline data and incorporating that in EIA methodology. Thank you for today. Next class we will discuss with the overall impact on air, water and living organisms, and also EMP.